Hello, NextGen Nation. Welcome to How to Get Things Done When You Can't Do Everything. I'm Megan Pleasant, the Marketing Content Specialist at GovLoop, and I hope you all enjoyed the award ceremony and the lunch keynote. I know I enjoyed seeing all of the public servants like you who got recognized for their hard work, because I know you guys are definitely hard workers. So let's get to it with this session. As a supervisor, you're tasked with a laundry list of responsibilities, budgeting, paperwork, and more. And in the midst of it all, you get pop-up demands from your boss, problems with your staff, and even other fires to put out. How do you balance all of this with your supervisory tasks and day-to-day job? In this session, you'll learn best practices for time management, prioritizing tasks, identifying distractions and time wasters, and working to establish healthy boundaries. But first, and I know at this point in the day, you know the drill, we have a few reminders to go over first. So let's go to housekeeping. If you're on Twitter, we would love to know what you've learned today. So please use the hashtag NextGenGov to share your takeaways. We also have some great additional resources available for you to download on the right-hand side of your console. That includes this slide deck with all the great information you're about to get, so be sure to check that out. If you want access to the closed captioning feature, look for the icon at the bottom right-hand of the media player, and you'll find it there. And we hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send us a message to that Q&A tab, and my colleague Jacqueline will get all of your questions answered. In that same Q&A portal, you can ask our expert questions. Drop them in at any time during the session, and we'll get to them in the second half of our time together and even peppered into the session. So we also have an open chat available for you today. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts. To access the open chat, click on the blue group chat button in the middle of your screen. We can also interact with other attendees there, so that's exciting. And if you miss a few tidbits, don't even worry about it. We'll email you a link to the entire event tomorrow, and it'll be sent directly to your inbox. So look forward to that. So let's cover our CPE information. We're giving out 1 CPE credit for your participation in today's session. Be sure to take all of the polls, participate in the entire session, and fill out the post-event CPE evaluation to obtain your CPE credit. The CPE evaluation can be found in the resource module on the console or at the Resource Center in the main environment. All of the CPEs will be emailed directly to you by June the 8th, so you'll be all set. So without further ado, let's get to today's speaker. Let me introduce our expert, Kate Vendemio, founder and CEO of Mount Vernon Consulting, which is a woman-owned consulting firm that provides customized training and consulting services to small to mid-sized organizations and associations that want to invest in, engage, and retain their employees. Prior to founding her consulting firm, Kate spent more than 15 years working with and for the federal government with organizations such as the Partnership for Public Service, FMP Consulting, and GSA. So without further ado, Kate, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I did see that there was some messaging in the chat about sound. I'm hearing that things are sounding better now. So if you have any continued problems, go ahead and put that in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be sure to address that. So wanted to just say thank you to all of you for coming to this session. I had the privilege of popping into several of the morning sessions to hear a wide range of speakers on topics, and I am really honored to be a part of this very talented group of speakers. But also I want to just acknowledge and recognize the hard work that you are doing as the future leaders of the government, and recognize that there is a lot on your plate right now, more so than ever. We have got working with the details of a pandemic. We've got quiet quitting in the workplace. We've got engagement issues. We have employee burnout. There's a lot on your plate as managers. And this really feeds into this concept of how can you get everything done when there's just not enough time in the day? So this is going to be a really tactical presentation to talk about specific ways that you can manage your time effectively so that you can effectively do your job, meet the goals of your agency, and be sure to be there to support your staff as well. So pretty hefty order. So let's just jump right into what we are going to be focusing on today. And so I'm going to do an exercise right now, and we're going to modify it a little bit because originally I had a countdown on the screen, but didn't quite work out tech-wise. So we're going to go old school and look at the countdown on my phone. But before I do that, what I'm going to invite you to do is eventually, when I say so, I'm going to have you close your eyes. I don't want you looking at phones. I don't want you looking at computer screens. And I want you to really get a sense of how long a minute is. So I'm going to put this countdown on my phone and hold it up to the screen. I want you to open your eyes when you think a minute has passed. Take a look at the screen and write down in the chat how many seconds are on my phone when you open your eyes. So again, the purpose of this is I'm going to have you close your eyes when I say so, and then I want you to estimate how long a minute has gone by. And when you think a minute has passed, open your eyes, and if you still see me holding up my screen, write down in the chat what the seconds are on the screen. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to invite you, and I'm going to count down from 5. So when I get to 0, go ahead and close your eyes. Again, open them up when you think a minute has passed. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that is my little timer. So I didn't see anybody put anything in. Oh, here we go. I did see some chats. Oh, here we go. So we had some people in the chat. I had some people coming in we had some people looked up at 20 seconds, 34 seconds left, 24 seconds, 12. I made it to 40, 9, 12, 10, 23. All right, so thank you all for sharing in the chat. So you can see a wide range. So someone had 1 second left. They opened their eyes with 1 second left. One opened their eyes with 53 seconds left. So, all right, thank you so much. I love this engagement in the chat. So my purpose of doing this was to give us a sense of time. Time is finite, okay? There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, et cetera, et cetera. But how we perceive time is very different from, based on a lot of other factors. So just before this, a few of us were talking about time and perception. And when you're a child and you're really excited for something, time seems to drag on forever. When you're an adult or when, you've got too much on your plate, you often say, well, where did the time go? You just look at your watch and you say, where did the time go? So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of being self-aware of what time is and how long things actually take. That is a key component to making sure that we're effective in managing our time. Okay. Oh, I see here. I was worried someone was going to walk in my office and think I was sleeping. I just overestimated. That's why I'm always late. So don't be too hard on yourselves here, okay? All right, so let's go on here to talk about the keys to time management success. So there was a really interesting article in Harvard Business Review a few years ago, and it talked about the fact that we all know that there are dozens of apps on your phone to help you with time management. Right? There's probably hundreds of books out there. There's thousands of articles. There are all kinds of ways and solutions for people giving you advice on how to manage your time effectively. But what this article found was that it's really, you have to be able to master some basic skills in order to apply that advice to your time management. And there's three main skills that we want you to be aware of. And once you can start to focus on those, then you'll be able to take a lot of those tips that we're talking about later in this session and apply it. So the first thing is awareness. So we just did that exercise of closing your eyes and thinking about how long is a minute. Some of us overestimated, many of us underestimated. But the fact is we need to be aware, again, that time is the time. We can't add or shift how many seconds go into a minute, how many minutes go into an hour, et cetera, et cetera. We have 24 hours in the day, regardless if we like that or not. I personally would love to add a few more hours to my day, but it just isn't, no one else has been following my lobbying efforts for that. So the first skill that we really need to master is an awareness of time. How long does it take for us to do things? This is actually more challenging than you think, right? Because you sit down and you start to do something and you get distracted, and next thing you know, you have no idea what you actually were focusing on in the first place. So I'm a reformed consultant. I worked in the consulting world for many years, consulting with the federal government, and I had to bill things on 15-minute increments. Lawyers do things on 6-minute increments. So I thought I got off lucky only doing 15-minute increments. But through that, I became very aware of how long it actually takes to do tasks. And so, you know, that's a big, bold step to actually track in 15-minute increments how you use your time. However, it is a time management technique so that you can work on that skill of awareness. Another skill that they found that people need to master is the sense of arrangement. And so that's what we typically think of as time management, of looking at a calendar and making sure that you have everything marked down on your calendar. But it's more than just that. It's being aware, again, of how long things take, and then arranging those in a way that is done efficiently. So grouping tasks together, making sure that you're thinking about if you're traveling to, let's say, a dentist appointment, that you build in some travel time to it, right? So being able to arrange your time in an artful and skillful way is, again, a skill that we want to be able to master. And then the third skill that they found through this study that needs to be conquered before you can really be an effective time manager is when it comes to adaptation. And so that's how you can adapt when things don't go the way you plan. So let's say you have a meeting that was supposed to be 45 minutes and an hour and a half later, you're still in that meeting. How do you adjust? How do you reprioritize? How do you rearrange? How are you aware of how that time is working? Those are skills, again, that we want to be able to master before we can go into all these techniques that I'm going to share with you. All right, so I do this class a lot, and I can teach this class for a whole day. So unfortunately, we only have an hour, so that's about the amount of time we're going to spend on the skills that I want you to enhance. But keep that in mind as we continue on with our presentation. All right, we're going to go into a poll. You now are very aware that we've been doing these polls. And so I want you to respond here in the poll of how many minutes per day does the average smartphone owner spend on their phones? So again, how many minutes a day does the average smartphone owner spend on their phones? And while you're doing that, I am going to look through the Q&A.
Didn't see any questions so far, but please feel free to ask. We are excited to have Kate answer.
All right, so I see, let's see. I'm loving the comments here. I love how awake you guys are. For those of us on the East Coast, it's 2 o'clock, which is sort of that 2 o'clock slump. All right, and I will leave it up to Jacqueline to let me know when you want to advance to the results. All right. So can everyone see these results here? Okay, 46% of you said that it's 216 minutes a day that the average smartphone user spends on their phone. And you are either all incredibly brilliant or you have somehow read the same study as me, but that is indeed the answer. It's 216 minutes a day, which equals out to be 3 hours and 36 minutes that the average smartphone user spends on their phone. Now, I will challenge you to consider if that is actually an efficient use of your time. And we'll go into how we can really judge a good use of our time. Okay, next we're going to talk about prioritization. So we talked about some of those skills that you need to be able to master before you can then move into prioritization. You've got to be aware of time and how long things take. You need to work on how you can adapt when things don't go the way that you always want it to go. So let's talk about here. One of the first steps we want to take into consideration is prioritization. Prioritizing what needs to get done. And so you can see here from this image that I have on the screen, or the several images on the screen, and the priorities here. Let's talk about, so personal health and wellness priorities. So this is where we think about in a day or in a week, what is priority for us? So let's think about when we need to work out, time for prayer, maybe some time for yoga, right? So what are the things that you need to do to prioritize your own personal health and wellness? There's that old adage of, if a plane drops the oxygen tanks, they say to put it on yourself first before you put it on another person. And what I find, and I see a lot of us as managers do, is we do not prioritize our own health and wellness. It gets bumped all the way to the bottom. And therefore, we end up not getting it done. Okay. But I'm a big advocate for making sure that you build that in as a priority for you. Family and relationships. Think about the other priorities that you have. If it's a priority for you to be home for family dinner at 6 p.m., then that's something that you need to make sure is noted and you built into your time. If you have children who are playing sports and you want to go to that, or you've got an aging parent who is in a nursing home and requires a visit, right? There's all these different factors that we want to consider when we are prioritizing what needs to get done. Again, only 24 hours in a day. And then lastly, we have our work commitments and priorities. And we all know that frequently those are the ones that end up taking precedence to everything else. Our other things like our family, our relationships, our personal well-being, that self-care gets pushed to the side because we're constantly trying to get everything done at work, put out fires, and our priorities get all shifted. So you'll note the order that I put this in. If you notice, work commitments and priorities got pushed all the way to the bottom. I'm not saying that that's not important, but what I am saying is you got to put the oxygen mask on first for you as a manager, especially those of you that are new. And if you're on that first line supervisor role, that is a tough transition to make. And in order for you to be long haul, remember this is a marathon, not a sprint, you're going to need to make sure that you build in some best practices for how you prioritize your time. All right, we're going to move to the next slide. So I noticed that my T got cut off a little bit and important, so I apologize for that. But this is a concept of what's urgent versus what's important. So as managers, we are used to people knocking on our doors, both virtually and in person, trying to grab our attention. It's even more complicated when you're working at home. You've got family and pets and the UPS man that are competing for your attention, as well as Microsoft Teams or Asana or your Slack line that are popping up, and lots of how do you not get distracted? So you'll see here this graphic I have on the right-hand side, which is an example from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And habit number 3 is all about time management, and it's putting first things first. So with Covey, what he advocates through this is shifting our paradigm, he calls it. So instead of saying and thinking to yourself, I'm going to spend time on what's urgent, or I prioritize what's urgent, it's instead thinking about, I'm going to spend my time on what is important. So there's a difference between what's important to get done and what is urgent to get done. The majority of the time, we lean towards urgent. We're in that firefighting mode. We're constantly trying to help solve and do other things. What happens? We end up working more hours. We're not as efficient. We're not able to think long-term and strategically about where we're taking our particular division or group that we're working with. And so the high-level important things, like strategy, the analyzing of budgets, the giving feedback to people, all things that are really important end up getting pushed to the side because we're constantly doing those urgent tasks. All right, so I see that we've gotten some good questions in the Q&A. So Megan, if you see anything good pop up, let me know. Otherwise, I will address them when we come to our next poll. So that'll give us a little bit of time to do it then. All right, so Eisenhower matrix. If you've read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you will have noticed that they included this matrix in here in their book. Covey actually swiped this from Dwight D. Eisenhower, former general and president of the United States, who was quite a master at managing his own time. And what you'll see here for this matrix is on the left-hand side, you'll see how it says on the vertical axis, we have less important and then important. And then on the horizontal axis at the top, we'll see urgent and less urgent. And so this is a matrix that we use to assess where we're putting our time and energy. So if you look here in the upper left-hand corner where it's blue, it says do first. That falls under the category of activities or tasks that are both urgent and important. So we're looking at the vertical and the horizontal axes. So the blue, do first, is important and urgent. Those are tasks that you want to do first. They're important. You got to get them done quickly. Deputy, or let's say the director of the agency, that is a very important task and it's urgent. So you need to do that first. Let's look over here in our right-hand corner. We've got upper right-hand corner. We've got tasks that are important or less urgent. And that's in that darker green box that says schedule. So tasks that are important but less urgent. What are those? Those are things that are really critical to you as a manager, but things that we don't always prioritize. So that's things like providing feedback to your staff. That's sitting there and doing your performance reviews, writing out those performance reviews. Again, important, but it keeps getting pushed down in the priority matrix. Those are things like having a strategic planning session or an offsite retreat to think about where you're going to go for the next quarter or the next year. It's wrapping up those budget line items or trying to figure out what your budget's going to be for next year. You know that you need to get it done, but it keeps getting pushed down in the priority list. So if we look in the lower left-hand corner, we have tasks that are less important, but they're urgent. And that's where we get into the firefighting mode. And this is where a lot of times we spend our time, in this lower left quadrant of less important but urgent. So all of a sudden, everyone comes to you, 2 of your staff members are fighting with each other about something. You've got someone requesting data and it's something else that you don't have, but your team has. This is where we spend a lot of our time. Someone comes in and they're standing in your office when you're in person and they sit down and they want to chat with you about something, right? It's urgent to them, but it's not very important to you. So what do we do with this? Well, it's recommended that this is the tasks that you delegate out to others, okay? People come to you, you got 2 staff members that are bickering with one another. This is a great opportunity to empower them to be able to solve that problem on their own and then come to you with a solution, delegating that right back out. Someone wants some information from you that you know that your staff has, you delegate that out. You look at those as growth opportunities for your staff, not another task for you to manage. And then lastly, in our lower right-hand corner, are our tasks that are less important and less urgent, where we spend a lot of time wasting our time. Let's think about this in terms of social media, video games, right? There is nothing wrong with taking some time to do less urgent and less important tasks. What is important is to be aware. Remember, we talked about that skill of awareness. If you are spending all of your time in that less urgent, less important category, then that's not the best use of your time. All right. Those are the things that you want to delete in your to-do box. You need to be aware that they could be wasting your time, and think about why you are always falling into that quadrant. So you'll see here in the two top categories, I have a little light blue box behind them. So the do first and the schedule. And you got the arrows going up. And that's because Covey and Eisenhower recommend that you spend the majority of your time as a manager in those upper two quadrants, where you're focusing on things that are important, and then the urgency level of them can vary. We'll talk about ways that you can actually implement this in your schedule as we get a little bit further into the presentation. So I know I went through that in a pretty quick way. Again, you know, sometimes I can take a whole day to teach this class, but I wanted to give you an oversight of it. So we're going to go into another poll right here. And I'm just curious as to which of these less urgent, less important tasks are your biggest time suck? So our options are social media, incessantly checking email, surfing the internet, binge watching TV, chatting, gossiping with others, or checking sports statistics, or other. So again, I'm not saying that it's bad to focus on these, but what I'm saying is that it's important to have an awareness of where you're spending a lot of your time so that you can adjust if necessary. All right, and as we have people doing this, I am seeing, I'll look at some of the Q&As that are coming in. Let me see here. All right.
I believe we had 2 questions for you.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot in here, so thank you. Okay. Task management and most meetings are generally one thing, but when working with people, team, and if there is an issue, that is another thing, often unscheduled. Do you have more than adjustment item ideas for those? Yeah, so we'll go into that in a few minutes as to some ways that you can work with it, because again, I know having tasks to do versus people to manage, which ultimately you probably are doing all of that right now, that is something that can be really hard to manage. So we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. How do you delegate in an environment where staff themselves have a lot to do in an age of diminishing government resources, especially if upper management delegate you to these urgent but not important stuff? Oh, isn't that the golden question? So how do we do? So kudos to upper management for delegating, right? I would also encourage you to think about what you can delegate, if there is anything. I'd also I would encourage you to ask management to help you prioritize, right? So going back and asking and saying, can you give me a deadline for this? I'm working on X, Y, and Z. Can you help me figure out where this should fall into the priority matrix? Could be a different way of upward management to help you with some of those time constraints. But yeah, I don't envy, it's really hard to be a manager right now, particularly in the federal government. I don't envy that at all. So hopefully as we move through this presentation, we'll have a little bit more data for you and some points for you. All right, let's go ahead and see the results here. All right, so we've got the majority of you are saying that incessantly checking email can be one of those less urgent and less important tasks. There's a psychological aspect to checking email, as we feel important, right? We feel important when we've got that big inbox, because it kind of makes us feel like, okay, we're needed, and you know, there's a value to me being here, right? But checking your email is repeatedly also is not the best use of your time, because you're constantly getting distracted and you could be constantly multitasking. So the second most common is people on social media. Then we've got other. So I'd love to hear in the chat just what are some of the other time sucks that you have in your life. And then we've got our binge watching, surfing the internet, etc. So again, really the purpose of this is to promote self-awareness, to have you start thinking about where you are spending your time in a way that might start to become excessive and how you can shift that back. All right, so normally I have people do a reflection. In the interest of time, pun intended, I will encourage you, this is just something I want you to think about when we end this session, and if you look back at these slides, but I want you to think about something that's on your to-do list that you can delegate out right away. So again, it's urgent to somebody, but might not be necessarily important to you. So what is there out there that you could perhaps delegate out to other people? And then also for reflection is what quadrant 4 activities, so that's less urgent and less important, can you limit moving forward? The more specific you can get, the better. All right, so again, those are just some reflection activities for you once we leave this session. Let's go now into another poll about what time of the day are you most productive? So are you an early morning bird? The early bird gets the worm. Do you hit your stride late morning? Do you start really moving and grooving in the afternoon? Or are you a night owl who could stay up all night producing work? So go ahead and put that in the chat. Let me see here.
While people are working on that, you've got 3 new questions.
All right, let's see. I'm trying to figure out where the order is. Okay. How do you time block, but not miss time urgent messages from your supervisor who expects an immediate drop everything and response? So I think that warrants a conversation with your supervisor and figuring out how to manage expectations all around. So, and also how to get in touch with you, right? So maybe supervisor has your cell phone number and can text you if it's something urgent. But if there's boundary issues there, maybe that's not the right thing. Maybe it's you have a special Teams message or a Teams ding or a ringtone if that person has something very urgent for you. So rather than relying on email to be the primary mode of communication, you might try and shift it so that it's just a special signal between you and the manager. Next question. It seems that with work from home, team members need more personal support, i.e. chat. Are you or others seeing this trend? So yes, I'm definitely seeing a trend where people are looking for that connection, the personal connection. I'd say it takes a lot of intentionality. And so there might be ways that you could build in team building or opportunities to chat with pre-scheduled things. So let's say you have a team meeting that you have scheduled. Maybe you can build in 10 minutes. A colleague of mine does this where the first 10 minutes of her hourly meeting is they're not allowed to talk about work. They only talk about personal or fun things or the latest football game or the Emmy winners, et cetera, et cetera. So she said that that's really helped grow her team and help them bond and connect. So that way she's using that time efficiently, so then she can jump right into the next thing. So what are some recommendations when your supervisor isn't responsive when you need them to be? All right, so that goes a little bit deeper than time management. So recommendations when your supervisor isn't responsive. So, you know, I think a lot of that, again, goes into conversation and having the conversation with your supervisors. What's the best way to get in touch with you? Keep in mind, if you're feeling overwhelmed at the management level, how your supervisor's feeling. So there's a lot of different factors that are playing into that. So without knowing a lot of the nuances of that, I would say maybe just start with that conversation and see what you guys can come up with as a solution. And then, okay, what suggestions do you have for productivity during a time I normally don't feel productive, i.e. I'm an early bird, but I can't function well late at night? Well, that's a perfect segue. So let's go ahead and show the results here to our poll. All right, we got a lot of early birds here. We got, this is very typical in the government. I know a lot of people work very early in the government. I'm an early bird. We got 40.7% of you are early birds. And then another 35.6% of you are hitting your stride mid-morning. All right, so we got over half of you that are really productive in the morning. We get a big slump in the afternoon, and then about 15% of you are, actually 16% of you are really effective at night. So I'm a night owl, and if I had it my way, I would work from 10 o'clock at night until 2 o'clock in the morning, produce my best work, and then not wake up and have to go to work until 10 or 11. But that's not really reality, right? That just doesn't work with the nuances of our job. So we're going to talk a little bit about circadian rhythms here. So you can see here my pictures of my early birds and then my night owls. When I first started my company, I talked to a business coach once, and she said to me, dead serious, and she said, how did she say this? The most successful business owners are the ones who get up very early in the morning before the sun comes up, because that's the most effective time of the day. And if you want to be a successful business owner, you better get up really early. And so fast forward 4 years later, I'm still in business, and she just launched her third business because the first two did not do well. So to that, I say, listen to your circadian rhythm and flow with what works best for you. Now, I am not saying that you all need to come in at 6 a.m. and leave by 2 p.m. because that doesn't work for everybody. What I am saying is being aware of when you hit those times that you're at your peak. Those are the times that you're going to block to do the most difficult work, right? If you're a morning person and you think really clearly, first thing you're going to do in the morning when you come to work is you're going to block that time to write your performance reviews, to write your strategic plan, to answer some of those urgent messages, right? You want to be aware of when you hit your stride. We can't always control when other people meet with us. We can't control when certain standing meetings are. But what we do have control over is, the certain blocks of time on our calendars. So be aware of when you hit your peak. If you don't hit your peak until a little bit later in the day, what is something that you can do to get yourself up and energized besides having copious amounts of coffee? So perhaps it means going for a walk, maybe going out to the gym if you're permitted to do that for a midday workout to get your energy flowing. Maybe it's talking to your boss and your team and explaining that, hey, you know what? I get my best work done when everyone else in the office has left. And so I'm just kind of the person that's going to stay for another 45 minutes or an hour to get things done. So I'm seeing a lot of fun things in the chat. Some of the early birds bury us in email and meetings, just saying. I worked at it, and I will say as a manager, you also want to be really careful about that. I worked on a team once, not in government, we were consulting, but routinely there was a woman who did not come in until 11. And she always wanted to have meetings at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And it really created a problem because I had an hour and a half commute. So I'm out the door at 4 o'clock because I got to get home, pick up my kids from daycare, et cetera, et cetera. And it all kind of came to head once where, one too many times she had asked us to stay late. And so we had to have a conversation about respecting boundaries. And if she doesn't really hit her stride until later in the afternoon, then all those energetic brainstorming sessions, they need to be bumped up a little bit because it's not hitting the circadian rhythm and utilizing our team to the best of our abilities. So for those of you who are early birds, just keep that in mind. If you're scheduling a meeting at 7:30 or 8 in the morning, not everyone's going to be energetic and thrilled about that. So think about how you're using that time effectively. Maybe you could use that hour to block to do some deep thinking or strategy work or whatever you need to do from a personal space perspective, and then bump that meeting until 9 o'clock. All right, so a couple things we're going to go over. So I talked to you again. I said this was going to be a more tactical presentation, so specific things that you can do. One of the biggest things that you can do is what we call time blocking. So I give you an example here. So you'll notice, remember we talked about those priorities. What do you prioritize? Your personal self, your self-care should come first. That includes things like making sure you block time for meals. I've been there. I've done it where there are the days, weeks where you are back to back to back to back to back meetings. You don't have a chance to even run to the restroom, let alone get a cup of coffee or sit down for a meal. One way to reclaim that is to block time for lunch. Doesn't always work, right? But if there's a way that you can block some of that time to protect that time on your calendar, people will see that and hopefully they will respect that boundaries. You'll see here that we have this blocked out so that we have the workout. So this is a 6:30, 6:30 in the morning workout. And then after that, you shower, get dressed, and eat breakfast. This is just a typical day, okay? You see here, I block time to read and respond to emails. So 8 o'clock, first thing, come in, read and respond to emails. Some people that works. They need a little time for their brain to start working, the coffee to come in, and reading and responding to the emails works really well. Other people, maybe that's when they're gonna block the time to think about a presentation they have to write later in the day. So for here, I recommended reading and responding to your emails first thing in the morning and then again at 5 o'clock at night. I know that doesn't work for everyone. You could also build it in, right? And that's when, if you've got some of those challenges with your manager and supervisor, explaining, I'd really prefer to not be tethered to my email. It makes me more productive. Let's come up with established times that we both agree that I'll be available to respond to emails. So this again is just an example. Let me show you the same thing, but I'm going to show you something that might blind or blow some of your minds. Okay, so this is the exact same thing, but it is color coded. Okay, if you are a person like me who deeply appreciates the color coding, I highly recommend that you do this. If you are not a color person and you look at this and it's just makes your mind explode with frustration, then you can just tune me out for a few minutes. But this is something that I do is so you see this little key we have in the upper right-hand corner. So personal health and wellness tasks are color coded as blue. And so for me, that really helps me organize my time. I'm able to look and see, okay, in the middle of the day, I have, a dentist appointment. And so that's a priority for me. I got to make sure that, it's a personal thing, but I got to adjust the rest of my day around that. So we have our family and relationship tasks come in as yellow. So here in this example, we have our son, Austin, has a JV soccer game. Big tip when blocking time is making sure you block the time to travel. Even if that means walking from one building to another. If it takes you a few minutes or you've got to go through security or you work somewhere on Pennsylvania Avenue where you routinely get stuck in presidential motorcades, you're going to block that time because otherwise someone's going to grab that time on your calendar and you are going to be in back to back to back meetings, and that doesn't help with anything. We blocked here, green is the meetings. So those are things that you obviously frequently don't have any control over. So again, for me, I just visually like to see, okay, I got like 4 hours of meetings today. Whew, okay. And then you see here, I blocked some time for administrative tasks, firefighting. So that's in pink. All right. And I skipped over strategic thinking and writing. So you can see here that I blocked in this mock scenario, we blocked an hour to prepare for a presentation. And then we blocked 2 hours to prepare a report, analyze findings, prepare briefing for a deputy manager, etc. So does this always work out the way that we want it to work out? No, right? things happen, things come up. All of a sudden, you got to switch your one-on-ones, or your one-on-one goes over, or an urgent task comes up. I challenge you to think about, is it important as well as it urgent? But what I am saying here is that this is a good way to help get you in the mode of being able to have some control over what your schedule looks like, but also prioritizing what's important and what is not necessarily urgent, but it's important. Because these things that are in this orange, preparing for presentations, analyzing things, doing briefings, thinking about strategy, those are all things we end up pushing away. We just don't put them on our calendar, and then we don't have the time to do it, and then we're working late at night, and then we're really resentful, and then we think there needs to be more people brought onto this staff, and we start spinning and spinning and spinning. If you're able to reclaim some of that time in your day by blocking that time on your calendar, that will start to make you more efficient with your time. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to have our, I think this is our final poll, and then I will look at what's in the chat as well. So how many hours per day does the average office-based employee spend browsing through their email inbox? Was it 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours? All right, so let me see here.
Got 4 new ones for you.
All right, making sure. What suggestions do you have for productivity during a time I normally don't feel productive? Oh, okay, so I'm an early bird but can't function well late at night. Hopefully we were able to address that. So productivity during a time I don't normally feel productive. So I'm really hoping you're not working super late at night. I will tell you from firsthand experience that sometimes the more we put boundaries around our external time, so our personal time, the more we put boundaries around it, the more effective we end up being with our time during that time we have to work, right? So if I know that my kids are going to go to bed early and I'm going to jump on the second shift, they call it, jump back on at 9 o'clock at night. If I know that I could stay up until 12 or 1, I don't know, I'm not as efficient with my time. But once I started putting boundaries in place and, my husband holds me accountable, it's 10, 11:30. Time for you to go to bed, I'm much more efficient with that time. So you might want to try and put some boundaries around if you can. Is there a time that most productive meetings for the varying circadian rhythm? Megan, that's a great question. Oh, no, that is Megan. Sorry, typed it. Is there a time that's most productive? I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know what that time would be. I would say just based on this data and based on my work with government loves, we got early morning people in the government. So you might want to consider before 12. So that's not necessarily data driven. That's just kind of my gut. I'm hearing a lot of feedback I'm not sure what's going on, but just letting you guys know. Okay, sounds better now. Whatever happened, thank you. How do you approach a supervisor that messaged you the night before and expects you to respond to their messages ASAP? First off, don't be that supervisor, right? Unless you're in the type of role that absolutely requires urgency, don't be that person, because no one likes that person and no one likes you. So think about how you feel. I had a colleague, my late night colleague, she used to do that a lot. And she would send an email at 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night and say, I need this prepared for tomorrow morning when I come in. Well, she came in at 11. If I came in at 9, that threw off my whole day. And so that was a team effort to really talk to her as a team and say, this is the impact that this is having. And so we need a little bit more time. And again, what you're considering urgent isn't necessarily what's aligned with what we're considering urgent. So let's have our conversation. All right. Megan, help me out here. Do I still have some time, or are we at time?
Nope, you're still good.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I saw something about another presentation starting. So, okay, someone's saying they can't see the polls. Can you see a response now? Hopefully you can. All right, because we're going to go ahead and show you. All right, how many hours per day does the average office-based employee spend browsing through their email inbox? So almost 40% of you said 3 hours. You guys maybe overestimated your time. So the average person spends 2 hours checking their email inbox. And so you want to think about that. If you are an email-based organization, then you might spend some more time with it. If you are a team or a group that uses Teams more efficiently, or Teams more regularly, you know, there's lots of tools out there that can cut down that email traffic, because a lot of times it's us looking at what other people have replied to, and it takes 6 emails to realize that everyone just said, yep, okay, that works. So, you know, consider how you can utilize some other tools that you might have on hand. We'll go through that in just a few minutes about what are some of those tools. So I wanted to just double check to make sure if I answered all the questions. Okay, I'm going to just do one more question, and then we'll move on, and then I'll address the final questions at the end. Do you remember blocking time at the beginning of each day or at the beginning of each week? So I'm going to make an assumption here that your question is that do you spend the beginning of each day focusing on blocking your time, or do you spend the beginning of each week blocking your time, right? So I would recommend actually that you block your time at the end of the previous week, right? So I have time blocked on my calendar on Friday afternoons to plan for my next week, because then I can come in on Mondays. I also know Mondays are not my thing. I am not an effective person on Mondays. Other people are. I hit my stride midweek and then really ramp up. By Friday, I am just crunking out things. And so I need that. I need to be able to do it on a Friday night so that when I come in on Monday, bleary-eyed with a little bit of a weekend, you know, overspill, and you're thinking, what am I supposed to do? Oh, I already spelled it all out for me. Other people, it works to do it first thing on a Monday morning. I'd also share with you the value of the reoccurring meeting that comes on your calendar. So pick up my children from school at the same time every single day, and that is blocked, reoccurring Monday through Friday on my calendar, okay? Create it once, it just keeps going, it shows up every day that I need it to. Working out, if you know I work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's blocked out on my calendar, it just keeps reoccurring. Doesn't mean I actually work out at that time, not always, but the time is blocked. I'm reminded that I need to do it, and I feel really guilty if I didn't actually meet that requirement. All right, we've got just a little bit of time left, so I'm going to go through these last few slides really quickly so that I can answer any questions. So if the calendar blocking doesn't work for you, because I recognize not everyone runs off their calendar, there are a few other ways that you can try and prioritize your tasks. All right, so the first one is called the ABCDE method. And so what that is looking at your task list. So you do have to come up with some type of organization. So this is looking at your task list and prioritizing. So, you know, A through E. A is the most important. E is the least important. In fact, what they recommend is that D and E tasks are things that you can delegate out. So if you have on a column, you know, A, B, C, and D, what you can do is group all your A tasks together, all your B tasks together, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one way to organize. Another one is called the Moscow method, and that stands for must do, should do, could do, and won't do. And so you can see, it's a little blurry, but this is actually, you can use online tools to help you prioritize that. So prioritizing what you must do, should do, could do, and won't do is another way for you to shift around how you do your priorities. The two lists method is used by Warren Buffett, where he comes up with multiple tasks or things to do, and you slowly start narrowing it down so that you eventually have 2 columns of the most important things to do and the least important things to do. And then from there, you narrow down your most important things to do. So if you want some more information on that, on any of these, you can do some additional research. And then the eat that frog method, which is a bit of a quirky little description, but that is the belief that you prioritize your lists and you prioritize your tasks and you accomplish the first two things on your task list, and that's it. So I still don't really know the connection about what it has to do with eat that frog. Maybe it's, go for, I don't know, your morning meal. I don't know. So, but that is really prioritizing, figuring out what the top two things are and making sure that you accomplish that for the day. All right. And then lastly, I think this is my last slide. Yes. So focusing on maximizing your time. So here's some tools and some tips. So sometimes it's just hard to get started. We have a hard time getting started. So you'll see that picture of the tomato. We call that the Pomodoro technique. That is where you essentially spend 20 minutes doing a task. And then at 20 minutes, the buzzer goes off. You can either continue on that task, you can step up and take a break, you can move on to something else, but it gives you 20 minutes of focused time. I use it all the time. I always do things in either 20 or 30-minute increments. A lot of times it's just really hard to get started, and so I use that as a motivation tool. It also helps with your time awareness. So remember, we talked in the beginning about how to be aware of how long things take. Pomodoro technique works wonders. There is an app called Engross that will help you on your phone stay focused. So that's something that you can use. And then there is an extension for Chrome called Momentum, which will help you keep track of things to make sure. And it also reminds you of what your goals are for the day or the week. So you can put that in and then it'll pop up with a little reminder of like, how are you doing in your goal today? So if you're easily distracted, you'll see here, one of the best tools if you've got a smartphone is there's the focus feature. So you use the focus feature to stop emails from coming in, stop messages from coming in. I actually just put my phone on focus for an hour and I can tell that it just went off because my phone is blowing up with text messages. So what that means is when you've got it on focus mode, you can set it for a duration. All of a sudden you don't get all those distractions that are coming through. Two websites to look at are Leech Block and Stay Focused, which will help block certain certain websites. So if you're a person who's constantly going on social media or, I don't know, obsessively checking sports scores, you can put some of those into these websites with parameters. So maybe you only get 30 minutes a day to go on Facebook. And then lastly, this really fun tool you see here is in the bottom right-hand corner is a little light. So you can put this outside of a conference room, your office, on your computer if you are in person. And basically the green light means that you're available and people can talk to you. And the red light means that it's not a good time to talk to you. So, that might be something to try and use when you're blocking your time. So that wraps it up. I know that was a lot of information. I am happy to hang on if the system will allow us to be able to answer any additional questions. I have a QR code here. If you'd like to subscribe to my newsletter, I'm always sending out all kinds of fun tips to make you productive and be a better employee in the workplace. So go ahead and scan that if you'd like to sign up for my newsletter. But I want to thank all of you and tell you that I appreciate you. I really appreciate the hard work that you do to serve the American people. And being a manager right now is a tough thing to do. So very much thank you for all of your time.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this session. I hate to cut this off because we've learned so many valuable things and we've had some great questions, but we do need to quickly thank our 2022 NextGen Partner Alliance for helping us put on today's summit. We have a few quick reminders before we log off. Don't forget to fill out your CPE evaluation in order to get that credit. If you haven't already, head over to the exhibit hall to check out our amazing booths. They're filled with additional information and resources. Up next, our closing keynotes will begin at 3 p.m. You can access that session through the conference hall in the main environment. We're going to be talking about setting effective boundaries from work life to home life and how to truly inspire your team. Thank you so much, Kate, for all of your valuable advice and insight. I know we all learned a lot. So we are going to see you at the next session. Thanks to everybody who attended, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.
Thank you.